I'm Jack Barron, Managing Director at Venture for ClimateTech, and I'll be the facilitator today. We have a lot of great info in store for you today, and it's going to be an exciting panel. I think you'll learn quite a bit, and you'll hear some remarkable stories. I have a few quick Zoom logistics to go through. Because this is a webinar, there is a chat feature, which some of you have found just in the last couple of minutes, but there's also a Q&A function just next to it. If you have any questions for us or for the panelists, please throw them in the Q&A and not in the chat. Scott and Chris on my team will be monitoring and they'll be responding. We'll also have some time at the end for questions directly from the audience. If you've got questions, and Scott and as we're going along, again, really, Scott and Chris will interrupt a little bit and perhaps direct those to Ramsay so she can direct them to our panelists. We'll also have a little bit more time again at the end for Q&A. Let's jump right in. Again, I'm Jack Barron, Managing Director at Venture for ClimateTech. We abbreviated V4C. And as a small introduction to V4C, we're a not-for-profit accelerator that helps secure a more sustainable future by supporting a diverse set of founders. We have a strong network of investors, mentors, technical experts who are all committed to helping innovators bring new climate technology and solutions to the next level. It's a 6-month intensive virtual program. We select 20 pre-seed and seed stage startups per year, per cohort. We've got our cohort 4 application period open now. And the program actually begins in May, but the applications are going on right now. Last year, we had quite a few applicants, and we down selected to 40 who entered our boot camp, and then we spent a good deal of time with them and then got to the 20. My team will throw the application link in the chat if you want to check it out, or you can grab the QR code as well. Today's panelists are both alumni from the program, so it's a great chance to hear where they are today in their businesses. Our facilitator today is Ramsay Siegal. She's a partner at Earthshot Ventures and a board member here at Venture for ClimateTech. In the past, Ramsay worked with Elemental Accelerator for 6 years, operating one of the world's largest climate tech portfolios and leading practice areas such as deal flow, due diligence, and corporate partnerships. Ramsay has been tremendously helpful for us here at Venture for ClimateTech and for our CEO co-founders. Ramsay, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks so much, Jack, and it's great to be here. My background is in energy and both on the hardware and software side, so I'm so excited to dig in and learn more about what Bing and Shiv are building. So I think we'll just start with a round of introductions. And Bing, if you could kick it off, we'd love to hear if you introduce yourself, your product, and what you're building right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Ramsay. Hi, everyone. My name is Bing. I'm CEO of Nanode Battery Technologies. We are located in Edmonton, Alberta. I see someone just in the chat say she has been in Calgary during the most cold days. Yeah, I mean, Edmonton is 300 kilometers away. So yeah, 2 weeks ago, it was extremely cold. It's like -40 degrees C. Yeah, but anyways, my company is focused on develop high performance anode materials for batteries, especially for sodium-ion batteries. I think most of the audience should be very familiar with lithium-ion batteries, but sodium-ion battery is a new type of post-lithium kind of battery, and it has the benefit of low cost, abundant material, and also it has good low temperature performance to be good for places like Edmonton and Calgary. And in my company, our goal is to use our material into sodium-ion batteries to push the high energy density so it can have the same energy density as the lithium-ion batteries. Then its application will be cover both the energy storage and electric vehicles. Yeah, so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Shiv, you're up.
Awesome. Thank you, Ramsay. Hey, everyone. I'm Shiv. I'm one of the co-founders of Active Services. I should put that in my name with the @ after. We are an MIT spinout that makes flexible solar panels for the built environment. The big problem in the world that we're tackling is that the solar panels that we know have been around for 70 years and the form factor has stayed the same. They're also only 1/10 of the cost of the overall solar install. So if you can make something that's way easier to install and you can save on labor and structural costs, then you can move the needle on making it cheaper and easy to deploy around the world. That's what we're trying to do, is make it cheaper in more places and make it make sense in more environments.
Great. And Shiv, I'm curious, out of all the different ways you could make impact in energy or in other sectors, how did you narrow it down to your specific solution?
That's a great question. So I met my co-founder in this class called MIT Climate and Energy Ventures. And the idea is that you pair super smart people like him who are working on innovative technologies with MBAs like me. And then you form a coherent business strategy and then try to pitch it and then build a team around it and then grow from there. So what was just an idea on a class with a technology that's TRL4, and then a guy like me ended up becoming a startup after.
Very cool.
So anyways, to actually answer your question of like why out of all the 50 ways to think about climate, why this? I think it's because a lot of people think about solar as a solved problem, and it's increasingly becoming clear that transmission is very hard to build out, that some geographies like Japan and Singapore are land constrained, and that there's a lot of benefit of reimagining what could be solar. And seeing that untapped potential is what excites me.
Very great. All right. And Bing, same question for you. Of all the different ways that you could make impact in batteries or in other aspects of climate, curious how you arrived at your current solution.
Yeah, so I have been in the renewable energy area for over 10 years. So I kind of studied what range of our renewable energy solutions, including solar, hydrogen generation, and the batteries. I landed on the current solution because during my research career, I figured that this technology we are developed is very different from other lab research because the method we are using is really simple and it's really scalable. So we know, in the lab, we can do really sophisticated system that has good performance, but it's really hard to scale up. But I identified that this solution is good for scaling up, so it should have a good application in the market. So and I've been always have a interest of seeing like science going into the life. So we did some market research, and the battery was a hot topic, and there is a great demand there. So I end up started this company about just over 3 years ago. And as we enter in, we actually pivot a little bit. I have to say, there's a still there is difference between like what in the lab and what from the market. So we kind of pivot a little bit from lithium-ion battery to sodium-ion battery application.
Okay, very interesting. And I spent most of my time before getting into venture in sales and channel sales, sort of business development side of the house. And I'm so curious, as you are bringing this to market, sort of what type of customers you imagine using the product, and sort of how you see the go-to-market forming over time.
For myself, because my company is making anode materials, so we are not makes a full battery. So our direct customer is the battery manufacturer companies. So the biggest 5 leading battery manufacturers are CATL, BYD, Tesla, Samsung SDI, uh, oh, and the other one. How come it's not even mattering? Okay, but anyways, and there are many smaller ones. And so we also work with OEMs. So the OEMs, they are using, battery in the cars. They have a direct research team to develop the batteries. And for sodium ion battery itself, the end application currently is in the energy storage area, is more widely used there. But we've seen the trend in that people are trying to push the energy density so that it can also be used in electric cars. And in the future, I think the market predicts there is also a big demand in the storage for EV charge station, because in the future there'll be a lot more EVs, and we need a lot of energy to do the faster charging for the EVs.
Great. Thank you. And Shiv, same question for you. I'm curious how you're thinking about sort of the total addressable market for solar is so large, and your product could be applied anywhere. How are you sort of thinking about narrowing down the world of possibilities?
it's fun because we keep getting reached out to by like new ideas that we never thought, like putting it on yachts or putting it on fabrics or curtains or putting it on the sides of buildings or on top of cars or in satellites, right? It keeps going.
Yeah.
So to your point, how do you narrow that down? Our thought process is it needs to be huge. So there's like a large enough TAM that makes it justifiable, and you're not building a market from scratch, which is hard to do. And people have proven that 10 years ago. And then it needs to be some kind of unfair advantage. So for us, that's low load warehousing. Imagine buildings that can't handle the weight of solar. So you have to structurally reinforce the building. There's a ton of that in the US, way more than I thought there was. And you can unroll ours like a yoga mat.
Mm.
We would sell ours to solar developers that would then go and install it on people's commercial warehouses and their commercial assets.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And how are you thinking about early pilots and sort of how to package those proof of concepts?
Very systematically. We're TRL4, so it's fun to think about like from now to like selling a whole bunch of this stuff. What are the mini steps we need to check the box on? And there's like some tech validation that needs to happen. There's some external certification that need to be done. So the way we're thinking about it is we're starting at the smallest scale possible with the most known knowns that are de-risked, and then slowly iterating to the final form factor and de-risking specific pieces of the technology or specific pieces of our scale up. So we'll start by changing the packaging, and then you'll start by systems, and then you'll start doing larger systems integration, and then you'll start thinking about permitting and other solar install risk. And you have to slowly de-risk different things until you can get to TRL 8.
Great.
Yeah.
And Bing, same question for you. How are you thinking about sort of early pilots? And it's one of the most interesting periods of time when you're sort of getting the product into the market and co-testing with customers. And you mentioned you have 5 sort of large prospects. I'm curious how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, so I totally agree with Shiv. So the whole process is about de-risking and about spend the minimum amount of capital and effort to build the minimum viable product. So when we do pilot test, we do it with battery manufacturing companies. What we do is we start with the smallest possible coin cells test, right? So we send out our material and they test it in their coin cell format. And once they are happy with that result, we'll get a little bit more material for them to build the pouch cells and eventually go to the pre-commercial, either prismatic or cylindrical battery cells. And once we do that, the final step will be evaluating, the safety stuff around the whole battery pack, and before it goes to actual production.
Okay, great. And zooming out a little bit further to the larger sort of energy and infrastructure world, I'm curious what are some significant issues that you're seeing in battery storage, Bing? What's sort of sizzling at the moment in terms of topics?
Yeah, so in batteries, in real life, actually, I think the number one thing people concern is the safety. And in practice, like when people are actually using batteries in energy storage system, there are 2 main metrics people looking at. One is the energy density. It's about like I have a certain volume or certain weight of a battery, how much energy I can store it in it, right? So, and the other parameter is the cycle life. So for a battery, I'll charge it, discharge it, charge it, discharge it. How many times I can do this? I can have a really, really high energy density battery, but I charge it for, say, 10 times it dies. That doesn't work. And these 2 requirements kind of can be very different in its very specific area. For example, in like field energy storage, when it's outside, so the volume of the battery doesn't matter that much because we have a solar farm in the desert, and there are so many spaces there. So I don't care how big the battery is, but I care more about the cycle life, how long this battery can last. Versus in the EV, in the cars or the energy storage in city, we care a lot more on the volume. I can't have a big battery around my house or a big battery in a car. That is not economic efficient. important. It's always a balance of how you choose the right type of the battery for the right application.
Oh, right. Perfect. Thank you. And Shiv, a similar question on the solar side. It's sort of a market that's been maturing over many years and had many different chapters. And I'm curious, like, what are some of the bottlenecks and issues that you're seeing as you're getting deeper into this?
Yeah, great question. I mean, there's some really hot button issue that folks generally talk about all the time. I mentioned transmission being a big issue. I think there's new FERC regulation that could help that in the next 5 years, but still, it takes forever to build transmission anywhere on the planet, honestly, especially in the US. There is, I think, cost issues, focus on soft costs. I mentioned this because like silicon module prices have plummeted over the last 10 years, which everyone knows, which is good because people are installing a ton of this and it makes sense at utility scale. But when you go install this onto a building, it's no longer the cost driver. Only 10 to 20% of the costs come from the module itself. So additional efficiency gains or cost savings don't move the needle like they used to. And if you want to decrease the system cost, there's a whole bunch of other soft costs that are now problematic and harder to move. So I think those are some of the biggest issues in the solar world.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing that I saw is the power purchase agreement created the opportunity for a lot of people to purchase solar that couldn't otherwise, that didn't just
Yeah.
have many millions laying around
Yeah.
play into the future cost of energy for themselves. And so, yeah, it's sort of a combination of a lot of different disciplines coming together that has enabled the growth of
Explosion.
solar. Yeah, exactly. I'm curious, looking outside of what you're sort of the specific area that you're focused on, if there are any other technologies in climate that you're tracking and really excited about.
I can go first. And this is like a hot button. This is like a controversial one, I guess. I worked at the NSA for a while, which is the DOE's nuclear security arm, and I follow the nuclear space quite closely. So there's a lot of SMR technologies, both in the US, like the ones that we hear of all the time, like NuScale. And then there's a whole bunch of Korean and Asian, in general, there's a lot of countries that are working on different nuclear technologies. And I think we're going to see at least some successful deployments at scale in the next 5 years. So we'll see how quickly they ramp up, how much they matter in terms of actually offsetting anything, how much they're encroaching renewables, and if that matters or not. But I think that's a very interesting space.
Yeah, definitely. One to watch. Bing, how about you?
Yeah, some areas that I've been looking at is like a hydrogen generation, like people say green hydrogen industry, and also fuel cells.
Very good. And I'm curious, being in building your company, what has been like maybe one or two things that have been surprising along the journey?
There are a lot of things that surprised me. Yeah, but I think the first one I would say is always prepare for change. So just live with uncertainty. There are just so many things that you are unexpected, and the things will come, and nothing will come as you planned. Have to adapt to change. And second thing I've learned is really talk to customer. Really talk to customer. Like you can't sit in house or sit in the lab thinking, oh, I'm going to build the best product is have this and that benefit. But you really need to talk to your customers to explore what is the number one pinpoint they're experiencing, what's the number one thing they are looking at, and what can bring the most benefit to them.
That's great. Thank you for that. And Shiv, same question for you. A couple surprises along the way. Anything worth highlighting?
Yeah. Uh, it's fun to think about because like I'm so focused on fighting day-to-day challenges that the macro picture can very easily get lost.
Yeah.
I think maybe some of the most interesting things is like how supportive, or maybe like I'm new to the climate space, right? I'm the first time founder, and like our company's only like a year and a half old. So I don't know what it was like starting a company in 2010, but I imagine it's way more supportive now than it was then. And I'm constantly surprised how many VCs exist now that didn't exist then, and how many accelerator programs like V4C exist now that didn't exist then, and how many resources are available. And I think that supportive community keeps people like us going when things get hard, and things will continuously get harder and harder. So it's just nice to know that like so many passionate and smart people are working so hard.
Yep, very, very true. It's matured a lot. I noticed that both of you have raised outside funding and also have received grants. And I was wondering, we have mostly founders on the phone that are listening in that are, on similar journeys with different technology. And I'm curious if you could share some tips and things that would be helpful to the audience as they go about fundraising and securing grants. Shiv, you want to start?
Yeah, so I think a good way is you have to have a system to help you do this. By system, I mean, for example, when you go out to raise money, you will receive a lot of rejections and no's. You have to have a system and set up a goal, say, hey, this is the number of investors I want to reach out. This is the number of meetings I want to have, and this is the number of emails I want to send out for follow-up, and just to keep your process going and really like follow your plan there. This can help you get rid of, oh, I get a rejection today, I'm feeling bad, or I get a no, this doesn't work. You just need a system to help you keep going. And for grants, I think it's a matter of you should get yourself or someone really do the research and get a list of what grants are available there, what is available to me now and suit my current stage, and what will be the next one, and I'll be chasing after once I reach the next steps. And at the end, it's also a teamwork. I think when we go for grant writing, when it works good for us is we start a draft together with the team. So we assign each part to different people, and this can help us efficiently get one draft done.
That's great. And can you share what tool you use for that relationship management? Is it a spreadsheet or do you use a specific tool for it?
Yeah, there are different ways. I see people using HubSpot, using ClickUp, and some people are just using a Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't matter what system you use, just make sure you have this system you can rely on and keep working on it.
Yeah, that's great. We use Airtable for our fundraising and find
Yeah.
it to be like the spreadsheet on steroids that's very searchable, and custom views and things like that can be helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Airtable
your
is
explanation
also
I
very
think was
good.
really very thorough, very helpful and systematic. So thank you for that. Shiv, how about you on fundraising?
Yeah, +1 on Airtable.
Yeah.
Okay, I was bulleting stuff out to make sure I cover everything. Well, I'll rapid fire them, and feel free to double click on
Take your
anything you
time.
find interesting. Okay, so allocate more time because I think it's a very different environment now than it was 2 years ago. So it's going to take longer than you think it is, even if people sign something to get from that to an actual wire of money, which is like when things actually happen. It took me longer than I thought it would. Organize everything in advance. I think it's my first fundraise, and we were somewhat building the ship while we were flying it. So we had a DocSend data room, and then I was like inputting stuff that was missing, and then we were like reorganizing things that people were asking additional questions for. We kept an investor fact, which I think was the most valuable thing we did, where it was like a 50-page document of every question that we had that was like well organized by category, and people can refer to them, and additional VCs can look at them. So I think that was very helpful. And it showed credibility that we knew what we were talking about and we were consistent in our messaging. This is like if you have the luxury of choice, I guess, something that we prioritized is like what kinds of people do we want to talk to and do we want in our early round? Generally, all money is good because you're an early stage startup trying to get money. But I highly recommend making sure that you prioritize some like means of screening the people that you want on your cap table. And for us, it was people that we like. So people that we enjoy talking to, enjoy working with, and then are also helpful, they can pick up the phone. Because the last thing you want is someone that's really hard to reach or not going to connect you to the people that they know, or it won't be helpful to you in your journey. Finally, for grants, I think that I was very narrow-minded initially when it comes to what grant opportunities exist. I was like, oh, I'm solar, so let me go look at DOE CEDO, and like that is like the world of my solar grant. And then like New York State, Mass CEC, DOD, like there's a lot of like local, state, federal, like non-DOE money that exists that is supportive of technology growth that you'd be surprised it exists. So expand your search for grants.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm curious, in your early outreach, how did you think about segmentation of investors? There's family offices, there's angels, there's bands of angels, there's, like lots of different flavors. So what resonated the most with your pitch, and where did you end up spending the most time?
We're a hard tech startup, so we focus on tech, funds that have demonstrated hard tech investments before. I think a lot of people have specific theses that contradict what we're trying to do. So don't waste your time on VC that have that don't align. Um, we like family offices. We like like just direct high net worth individuals. We like deep tech and hard tech focused VCs.
Mhm.
And then yeah. Anyways, I think that was our thought process.
Okay, great. And Bing, how about you on that front? Which sort of segment was most interested as you were going out to fundraise?
Yeah, I think that one is the most important thing is like Shiv said, this the investors have to have aligned vision with you, and for the type of VCs you should contact, it's I think it will align with your company stage. So in a very early stage, we kind of raise the money from several very great angel investors. The process is really quick, and they make decisions by themselves and where's money just the day after. And they are the individuals that have exactly aligned vision with us. And as we go for a seed and after fundraise, we do find like the amount of capital we need and support we need should from deep pocket. So I think in the seed stage, which we are raising now, we look for VCs that have this vision in clean tech. And in the next stage, we'll be very more interested in corporate VCs because of our industry is quite special in batteries. I mentioned there are several the big players in the area, and there's big investors who like really have the resources to be put in the batteries. Yeah.
Perfect. That makes sense. Thanks so much. Switching gears to sort of operating the company and away from the fundraising, I'm curious, Bing, if you could share a couple learnings on building a team and sort of prioritizing. I know there's often a struggle to prioritize sales versus product development, and sort of how you've been thinking about that after closing some funding.
Yeah, great question there. I think I'm still learning myself because I come from a technical background. I'm always learning on the management side. So for my company, my team is still pretty small. We are under 10 people. The minimum thing I do in my team is make sure everyone knows what the priority is. And because we are a small team, we kind of can move really quickly. Say once we identify this is the next big thing we need to do, we will like have everyone's effort on that. Yeah, but I don't have much experience yet in managing a big team. Yeah, I'm looking to learn it in the future.
Great. Well, those are great insights. Shiv, any thoughts in terms of prioritization and sort of team building?
Yeah. I mean, to Bing's point, similar. We were like two people when we raised our money, and now we're like seven, or we're going to be seven, hopefully, when people accept our job offers. Uh, the way I think about prioritization, and this is like after our first board meeting, which happened last week, was like we like made a chart of like money over time, and it goes down. And the question is, at what points in time do you hit what milestones, and what are the priority of those milestones? And then how do you work backwards to help you achieve those things? And for us, because we're TRL4 and we're a hard tech thing, we have to make a thing that's bigger, essentially, is the main goal, and validate it and certify it. And like, there's a lot of like steps to get there, but essentially make something bigger. So it's all product development. So our team building has been focused on manufacturing engineers, device engineers. I can help upscale technology. Our advisors have been all manufacturing focused or like solar technology focused. Our spend has been focused on like getting cheap equipment that can help us with that scale up. So anyways, essentially working backwards from your 12-month milestone to your 6-month milestones, and then building a team and a roadmap to get there from that.
Okay, great. And then
Maybe,
go
sorry,
ahead.
maybe
Yeah, please.
something to add on that is
Mhm.
like, because in early stage, you want to prioritize tasks, but unfortunately, sometimes you have to do the tasks at the same time because you just need to do that to buy the time. But I think one golden rule there is, if there is two things you want to do there, is one, talk to your customer, and two,
Mhm.
build your product.
Right. That's great. Yeah, at Elemental, we have, when I'm no longer there because we spun out our venture fund, but a strategy track, which just encourages founders to speak to 50 customers and then digest all that information and potentially change the pricing model or product strategy based on all the feedback. So it's music to my ears, sort of that flow of work, starting with the customer, and then everything comes from that. So I'm curious, I know hiring is such a dynamic topic. We could go hours and hours on just hiring, especially in this sector. And I'm curious if either of you have learned any hacks that other early stage startups could utilize in finding the right people for these very specialized roles.
I would say this is very hard. So, at least from my experience, it's very hard to find the people who have expertise in the industry and who have the some experience in startup, and who is willing to work in a really challenging startup environment. The I think the most effective how will come from your connections. I think, for example, like being in the B4C connection, I think it's easier to meet such people because people in the network here, one, they have the same passion and vision in clean tech, right? And usually people have startup experience. Um, yeah, that's what I'm doing, and I hope I can keep doing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Shiv, anything to add on hiring?
I'll give you brief. The two hacks I guess other founders have told me is like do dinners before each of your like full day recruiting interviews so you can get to know the person on a human level. Because like if you're going from 5 to 6, each like human matters, right? There's gonna be a lot of interpersonal collaboration. If you can't do that casually, then like that's not gonna be a good fit culturally. Um, and then the other thing in terms of outreach is if you need to hire very specialized people. I mean, if you want to hire like tech people, this is the best time to be doing it ever. But we don't do that, unfortunately, because we have tech, I mean like ex Silicon Valley software folks. But for us, we need to hire specialized like solar researchers. And there's only so many research labs that like that make the PhDs that we need to hire. So I individually spent like an afternoon on LinkedIn just like stalking every professor that's in doing research in this field, and then like DMing them and emailing them and saying, hey, listen, we have this position. Can you share it with your lab group? And then I got like a dozen applications after.
Wow,
So
that's
don't mind
awesome.
like, yeah. So like don't worry about the hustle and like go and like directly reach out to people you think might have good candidates.
That's great. A lot of the audience is looking at Venture for Climate Tech as an avenue for their growth, and I'm curious if you could share a little bit about your experience and sort of what was most helpful for your journey.
Yeah, I can go first. The most helpful thing for Rich and me, Rich is my co-founder, is there's a weekly chat that you do with the folks like Jack and Scott and the team, and I think that was like as a founder, you're fighting so many fires week in and week out. So it's nice to like have pick their brain from like seasoned people that are seeing dozens of startups all the time, and like have a neutral perspective as you like fight these fires. And I think that was very helpful for us as we were going through the early stages of our growth.
Great.
Um, yeah, that's my first take. Go ahead, Bing.
Yeah, so I find the number one thing here is the network. I can find the right support I want. For example, during my time in the program, I found two mentors who is really good on making the sales, and the other one is really good on do the manufacturing process, which are the key for my company during that time. And the other one I think is a weekly meetup. And that really in early stage it help you to focus on the task for each week. And it's good to hear what other founders do, just hearing other people talking about what they have done is kind of inspiring. And we have a little discussion on, oh, I experienced this thing. Oh, that person also experienced this thing. We can have a discussion there. And the other thing I found is really in a program, you are surrounded by people who have been in your position and who have been in your stage. The feels, I just found the right organization, right? I can talk to other founders who, the mentors, they have run their own startup. They have been facing the exactly same problem as me, and just feel well supported in a program.
Great, thanks so much. We often tell our founders to end with an ask. So before we go to Q&A, just curious if you have any asks for this group. It could be somebody you're looking to hire or an introduction to a customer or anything. Shiv, you want to start?
Yeah, I got you. So, I mean, yeah, I love this. I love the fact that you do this. This is nice. I have a lot of 100 asks all the time. So the one I'll distill down is if you have any partners or know folks that have like built environment seeding grounds. So people that support built environment founders, whether that's like buildings where you can rapidly deploy or like anything in that ecosystem, let me know.
Great.
For me, though, if you know any investors who is interested in battery technology, a very cool high performance battery material solution, please make an intro. And also, if you have a chance to talk to people, tell them about the sodium ion batteries. It's gonna be the next big thing.
Great. Will do. And over to Q&A. If any of the audience members have questions or want to dig in further to any of the topics we discussed, feel free to shoot a question over.
Hey, we do have a couple.
Okay, great.
So I can read off some of them. Let's see. The first one is actually if Bing and Shiv are okay with it. We're wondering if people were wondering if you were okay with sharing your contact info to reach out afterwards. And if so, you can just drop that in the chat. Whatever the best way to reach you. So it seems like you're cool with it. Cool. I'll let you guys drop your stuff in the chat. The next question is what pain points is your company are facing, and who, parentheses, what qualifications are you looking for to get help if salary and compensation is not an issue? So I'm going to read that one more time just because it's worded. What pain points is your company facing, and and who are you looking for to get help for? I guess what problems are you facing, and then how are you looking to address those? And are they sometimes a person that you can hire?
I can start. So, for my company, so currently we are doing pilot test with several leading battery manufacturers, and really our bottleneck right now is scaling up the production. So we are producing in small amount in our company, and we have a lot more demand outside. What we are working right now is, one internally scale up production, and the second is find the contract manufacturing, helping us to do the scaling up. We really look for support in how to quickly scale up our manufacturing. And we look people who have experience in manufacturing and experience in supply chain, especially in battery materials or metal processing, metal mining sectors. And the other part is on like overall business growth strategy. We are right now we have a good product, we have tractions, we have a lot of interest outside. We want to grow the company to bigger, right? We look for either partnership with big companies or like growing to be a standalone like manufacturing company to provide these battery materials for the battery manufacturers. We're looking for strategic visions that can help us set a long-term plan for the company to grow in the future.
Thanks. And Shiv, how about for you?
Yeah, this is interesting because the pain points change pretty frequently and they're all happening at the same time, I guess. Um, maybe I'll focus in on one that's the most relevant, which is our main goal is to de-risk our tech and manufacturing. And that requires things because you're building something and those things cost money. And the capital equipment could be used at like universities or other people's locations. So you don't have to spend the capex up front. And that's good for your cash burn and your burn rate. But at the same time, you can't iterate as fast and you don't have as much control over the equipment. So I think there's an interesting question of like how much like it depends on how much you can raise and stuff, but like how much do you like choose to in-house early and by in terms of buying things that can help you move faster? And then how much do you rely on existing like outside vendor equipment and iterate like at an external site? I think that's what we've been grappling with for specific pieces of equipment.
Gotcha. Thank you. And I will invite folks to put questions in the Q&A as now that we're kind of in session as well. We do have one more question dropped in, and it's building a company seems really hard. What inspired you to do this and keeps you going through the challenges?
You're not wrong. It is very hard. I think like or help me a big part of why any climate founder starts a company is because like you and maybe this is part of like what inspired us to do this anyways, is there is no single solution to this. And like everyone needs to play a small part in drawing down the 50 gigatons a year. And like if we can all play 100 megaton difference in our specific technology approach and collaboratively get there, then that's very meaningful. So the reason we burn the candle on both ends and work 80 hours a week and like try to build a team and try to make a difference and try to sell something is because hopefully at the end of the day, you build something that you're proud of. And in that effort, you've improved the world in a small way.
Yeah, it is really hard. So when I started, I kind of only have this passion. I don't know it's so hard. But for me, is as I grow the company, I find it's very challenging. But in the meantime, I'm learning really fast as well. I really enjoy this learning curve. It's hard, but I feel like for myself, I've grown a lot as well. Other things I've learned during the 3 years is really look after yourself. So founders just tend to, working on 10 different tasks at the same time and really feel pressures. It's really important to look after you, say, hey, my body tells me I need a rest. So just go take a rest. Don't feel guilty or anything. When your body is fully rested, it's like a battery, you recharge yourself, right? And you can have more efficient time to work on this. And at the end of the day, I think this is from the two co-founders of Y Combinator. What they said is, yeah, if you think you are doing something that is meaningful, if it works, it's great for people. That's good. If it doesn't work, that doesn't matter. It's a good try. But if it works, it's good for people. That's the ultimate goal of building a startup.
Awesome, thank you.
Shiv and Bing, we have a few more
Yeah.
quick questions. One is your IP strategy. How much of it can you share with us? And what's been your strategy and how have you managed the costs around your intellectual property, your patents?
It is so expensive that I had no idea. Uh, okay, so I'll give a quick answer as much as I can share. We're licensing our stuff from MIT, and that comes with an entire negotiation of like I'll spare you the details, but it's an entire process that takes a while. Uh, that's only a portion of our IP. Now that we're our independent company, we're going to start developing stuff in-house and filing our own patents. Some things will be maintained as trade secret. It'll be a strategic based on defensibility and how much we can actually protect. So I think that is going to be decided going forward. We have advisors that have supported deep tech companies like ours in the past, and they've had these similar questions asked of them 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think that expertise will help us make sure that we're filing the right things in the right places and also not filing things that we shouldn't be filing and keeping some things trade secret. Bing.
Well, thank you, Bing.
Yeah, number one thing is find a good attorney. Yeah, number two is especially when you're doing hard tech, figure out which you want to keep as a trade secret, which you want to file a patent, which you want to publish it online or publicly. Yeah, and for the IP strategy, I think it is very, very expensive. And so there are many like small strategies, how you like drag along the filing process and how you smartly choose location. But that's like what's another hour to talk about. But I think for the lesson I learned is for most of the tech founders in the beginning, they don't value their IP very much. Not say very much. They don't know the value of their IP. So from research or academia, most of the time people just want to tell others, "Hey, I have great things here. I want to publish a paper." They have no this sense of how important your IP is and how important for is a timing when you release your like a secret recipe or anything. I just encourage all early stage founders. You should spend time and really dig into your IP strategy, how to learn how to protect yourself and how can you protect yourself in the future. Like think this is really important.
Very good. Thank you. For 12 months from now, as you look back on the past year, what do you think are going to be the major milestones or the major milestone that you need to achieve at Active Surfaces, Shiv, and at Nanode, Bing? So Shiv, do you want to start that one, please?
Yeah, 12 months from now milestone. Real quick, I want to double click on what Bing just said because I like the idea of making sure you find a good patent attorney. I think like finding good anything will save you a ton of money, even if it's more expensive up front. Like good lawyers for your fundraise or like there's like so many like getting the wrong person for your like part-time CFO or like these can all cost you more money. So it's very important to get good people to help you the first time. Okay. 12 months from now goals. We kind of work backwards in terms of like what do we need to accomplish and what can we accomplish from a tech de-risking perspective. We think about it from two ways. Right now we have solar panels that you've seen, Jack, but they're currently this big. There you go. They're like 100 millimeter, 100 millimeters, and we need to upscale that on a larger machine. And we don't want to essentially go from here to big on the final product form factor because there's a lot of variables that we're going to mess around with. So we want the lowest risk, lowest cost MVP, like being mentioned, at some point in the future. So we're going to print a more stable on glass version of it and put this outside just to prove that we can print something at scale and we know how to do that and the processes and the techniques are all scalable. At the same time, we're going to hit certification milestones on the smaller scale devices. And then make sure those techniques are scalable on the larger machine. So essentially, we're trying to parallelize and de-risk specific things, one on a big and one on a small, and that way you can accelerate your product development.
Very cool. Thank you, Shiv. Bing?
Yeah.
Yeah, for us, the number one thing is to scale up the production. So we hope to scale up our current production quantity by a factor of 10 so that we can ship enough material to our customers. And the number two thing is really see the full demonstration in pre-commercial cells in like cylindrical or prismatic cells in larger format that is ready for the market to take.
Excellent. Chris or Scott, do we have any more questions from the audience?
I don't see any more questions in the Q&A, so we're 5 minutes short right now. I do have one question that I was curious of just personally, so I might throw that one in, and then we could call it after that if we don't get any more questions. So this is the last call for questions while they're answering. I'm always curious as to how you find your actual customers during customer discovery and what strategies you used to find said customers. So I know that customer discovery was a big part of the venture program, and I was curious how you all did it and just found folks. Is this going down? Is it just going and walking around looking for people or what?
So for my company in the early stage, I cannot rely on my network because like a battery is a small world, right? You probably know like previous colleagues or like previous friends who is working in a battery company already, so getting connections there. And later we do our own research and reach out to battery manufacturing companies like leading manufacturing companies. And I have a great BD person who helped me set up that customer initiation and customer reach out process, and has been really successful in acquiring customers. Another good way is go to conferences and workshops. So it's a very efficient way to meet people there.
Thank you. Shiv?
To not be redundant, one thing that we did that was helpful is that we created a process map of like what we think the value chain is from like raw materials to like solar panels on a building, and then where we fit in, and then who we think we're selling to with arrows, and then who we think is the end user of the whatever of the panel, and then who we need to convince along the way. And we would take that to the people that we already have a relationship with in the value chain, and then ask them, do you know people in these other categories? We don't know people. And then they would connect us and we would start making more conversations. And then the arrows would change over time as we get more educated.
Nice. What a good system. Cool. I don't see any more questions in the chat.
Very cool. Well, we can't thank Shiv and Bing and Ramsay enough for helping us today. We really appreciate your time. We know it's super valuable for all of you. And thank you for your help all the way along. So it's been wonderful just having you involved in the program, all three of you. And I guess Chris will kind of wrap things up then.
So we'll have the recording will be sent out to emails and stuff probably tomorrow once it gets processed. And other than that, thanks again for joining this alumni roundtable. All right, take it easy, everybody.
Everyone.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.